This is the Sport Fiction Podcast. We discuss the world of sports at 13 PSI without a trash can in sight. If our answers frighten you, then you should cease asking scary questions. Sport fiction is a made-up piece of literature where a sport has a specific impact on the plot or the main characters. Let's see what these two characters will make up today. One is a sports analytics expert, and the other one, a sports agent. Here are your hosts, Noah and Jorge.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Sports Fiction Podcast. I am Jorge.
And I'm Noah.
And we're glad to have you. This show is sponsored by my wife. I borrowed her check card to buy some microphones and stuff, so at least we have a sponsor. She just doesn't know it yet. But when we start making money, she's going to be very happy that she sponsored us, right?
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the New Heights podcast is sponsored by Experian or somebody like that. So we need to.
Yeah, they've got a few. they've got Accelerator Energy. They got it going on. They got a lot of sponsors.
Nice. Maybe we'll get to 1.5 pretty soon. Well, thank you for joining us. To those of you listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, watching us on our YouTube channel, or you can also find us on our website, www.thesportfiction.com. We got a lot to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, I was a little bit more right than I would like to admit that I thought I was going to be, I guess I should say, with the first week of the NFL playoffs. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we left it as maybe we'll go to the game, maybe we won't. And I guess spoiler alert for everyone, we did end up going to the game. I will have to say it was probably one of the better birthday presents I've ever got. So thank you.
It was a great and a terrible birthday present or birthday day, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, no, it was all. I mean, it was expected, I guess. But the seats where we were incredible. I mean, it's probably the second best seats I've ever had to like any sporting event ever. And I thought what was really cool, and it kind of hit me a little bit when I was there, when I kind of realized this was going to happen, but be able to sit, we were about 4 or 5 rows behind the Eagles bench. And to be able, I mean, Jason Kelce literally stood right in front of us during the national anthem. And to be able to kind of say, although I know there's some reports that, Schefter reported that he's retiring, and Kelce kind of came out and said, hold on, I'll wait till you hear from me. But I still think in all likelihood he played his last game. So it's just a really cool memory to have. So if nothing else, even though the result was terrible and I kind of knew what was going to happen, and I left before the third quarter even ended, it was incredible. It was a really cool experience. And I do the only thing I regret is I wish maybe I stayed at the end to try and get some acknowledgement for some of the guys. But the things that were starting to come out of my mouth were nothing positive, and I didn't really feel getting arrested.
To be fair, half the Eagle fans left early too, so you're not alone. I don't know what to make of the reports. If he hasn't said it, everybody's speculating. Of course, you were out there yelling, "Hey, come back, don't go, don't retire," or whatever, because there's that speculation out there. But after the game, he was high-fiving fans in a way that I haven't seen before. So I don't know. If you ask me, if you put me to the fire, I would say, yeah, he's probably retired, and he saw that as his last game. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially after watching the documentary, which if you haven't seen his documentary, I couldn't. It's one of the best sports documentaries I've ever seen.
I need to watch that one.
Yeah, you got to watch it. It's pretty incredible. You could kind of tell that they were bracing towards the end, and I really think the only reason he came back this year, well, there's a couple reasons. One, he's still the best center in the league, or at least definitely top 3. I still think he's the best center in the league. But I think, if we would have won the Super Bowl, he would have retired. I really do. I think he would have retired. It would have gone out like that. The fact that we lost and we were so close to actually winning it, and honestly were the Super Bowl favorites up until we played the 49ers this year. Um, I think that's the main catalyst for him coming back. And it's the biggest thing I'm upset about the way the season ended is just because if this really was it for Kelsey, um, it really ended in such a tragic way that we'll get more into it. Trust me, I've got a lot to say about it. But
we could see his frustration, man, and it's one that a lot of fans don't really understand when they work so hard and they're out there on the trenches and the game's not going like they wanted to. I mean, it's a different level of frustration that you can see they go through,
oh
considering
yeah,
how much effort they put in and how much work. So
they were
but
shaking their heads after the first drive of the game. I pointed it out to you. I was like, look at this. They're already they like came in defeated. And I mean, look, no disrespect. The Bucks came in, they kicked our ass. They handled business. Baker played great. They should have put up 50 points. If Mike Evans caught two of those passes and Kate Otten caught one of those other passes, they probably have two more touchdowns easily. Um, it's just a disaster from top to bottom. Clearly firing Sean Desai and replacing him with Matt Patricia just failed, which is another reason why Sirianni's got to go. Um, but it's just the tackling it's like the worst tackling team I've ever seen. I mean, I didn't watch it live because I was at the game, but I had people send me stuff that Ray Lewis was saying on the Manning cast, and like you hear like an all-time legend talking about how frustrating he is to see like the defensive effort on the side of the ball. Like he said, called it the worst tackling team in the NFL he's ever seen. And like, that's just like mind blowing for a team that literally had Super Bowl aspirations 2 months ago. Less than that. Um, and then you hear Peyton Manning just ripping the offense of like, why are they hanging Jalen Hurts out to dry? Why, the Bucks lead the league in blitz percentage. Why is there no game plan? Like, I mean, it's just a top to bottom failure. The players suck too. I mean, this isn't all on the coaching. I mean, I'm gonna call it out like it is. Jalen Hurts really regressed this year. He's still very good, and I think a majority of the issues are correctable and are fixable. And I think a better coaching staff can get more out of him.
was he
Um,
healthy on Monday?
Probably not. I mean, his first couple of throws, it looked like he was just like fluttering them.
Yeah, and nobody is. I mean, this time of the season, nobody's like 100%, but
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if his knee issue was a little bit worse than what they were leading on. Forgot what game it was, but it was one of those games where he just like broke an absurd tackle and like made like a couple of steps and his like knee kind of like hyperextended. It might have been against the Rams. I feel like it was against the Rams. And I feel like ever since that game, they didn't really run at the same, he wasn't the same since that. So I don't think Jalen Hurts was 100% healthy. And obviously we know his finger was, I mean, his first couple of throws, I looked at you, I was like, I don't know if he can throw the ball.
yeah.
Then he did step up and make that one unreal throw to Devontae Smith. I was like, oh, okay. He can put a little bit on it. But no, it's just a disaster. And then like without AJ Brown too, I mean, you can tell the offense was just so over reliant on if all else fails, we're gonna just throw it up to AJ Brown. And when that wasn't an option, you could, I mean, look, and again, no disrespect for the Bucks. They played well. They might have played their best game of the season. I'll give them credit. But I mean, this is a team that scored 9 points against the Panthers last week.
Well, the Panthers are an elite defense. Now, we'll unpack the playoffs. We'll talk about everything and maybe a little bit more about this game, I'm sure. We didn't make picks last week, but I can tell you which way we would have gone. I think you did post yours out there in the interwebs, and you went what, 4-2?
Yeah, I got two wrong. The two I got wrong, I had the Browns beating the Texans. I believed in the Joe Flacco magic. To be honest, I really just didn't expect the Browns defense to just get pummeled like that. I thought when in doubt, it was pretty close. I choose the team with a better defense that I felt strongly about, and the Browns defense just got shredded. So credit to Texans and CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. I think you asked me last week if there was a team I believed that they could win the Super Bowl, and I said no. I think they have a better chance than I gave themselves credit for. I still don't expect them to, but it's a hell of a season, and it's winning a playoff game is not easy in this league, and especially for a first year coach and a first year first year quarterback. So super impressive. Congrats there. But I got that one wrong. And then the other one I got wrong, which I think almost everyone in the world got wrong, was the Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? All right, well, let's talk about Cleveland first. So I think I was on the same side as everybody else. Cleveland's gonna come in and maybe the Houston Texans are not, they're not seasoned enough. They don't have enough experience, obviously, with the rookie quarterback, rookie coach. But the game wasn't all that bad at halftime. It was only a 10-point game. I mean, you could tell that Houston was able to move the ball, and Cleveland was still struggling with their offense. But you think, they go make adjustments. You have a bunch of veterans in there, and they'll make the adjustments to come out and make this a real game. But then I don't know. Offense just disappeared. Their defense, the Texans defense just took over in the second half. And
Yeah,
and you have unanswered score after score after score, 21 points in the second half, and Cleveland couldn't do anything. So I was surprised, that
I was pretty
happened.
surprised. I think it's pretty obvious that Amari Cooper wasn't 100%. Like looking back on it now, and then so if you take Amari Cooper really out of the equation, you got David Njoku, you've got the running back tandem with Ford and Kareem Hunt. Um, Bryant is a decent second tight end too, but like the weapons really were limited, and I think that was really showing that they were very reliant on Amari Cooper. And then when Amari either wasn't 100% or kind of got shut down, maybe a mix of both. The Texans had a really good game plan. And I mean, Will Anderson is showing everyone why a lot of people thought he was the best player in the draft in general. He coming on strong. The Texans are for real. And it's amazing what you can do with one belief, buy-in from a total teammate, and then also just you have a quarterback just playing at just a super high level. I mean, Stroud, you can make a case Stroud might be a top 3 to 5 quarterback in the league moving forward. In terms of long term, it's probably the most impressive rookie season ever. So
Yeah, the
we'll see what.
half of the season was really good for him.
Yeah,
But I mean, is Cooper a top receiver in the league? I mean, should the Cowboys have dished out a bunch of money and kept him?
I don't think he's like one of those. I wouldn't call him like he's not in the Justin Jefferson category, and he was also a little bit older too. But he's not like Jamar Chase. I don't say he's like that echelon, but he's a number one wide receiver in the NFL, and so those guys are hard to come by. So yeah, I mean, it definitely helped. I mean, I don't think it's as big of an impact as maybe like losing an AJ Brown or any of those other guys I just mentioned. Um, but the difference is, the Eagles still had Devontae Smith. Besides David and Joe, like could you even name the Browns wide receivers? um, so
I mean, I'm
guess
still surprised that they did what they did this year. I didn't expect them, after 5 games, I didn't expect them to go out and put up 11 wins. So
no, nobody did, and let's call it like it is. Flacco got hot,
yeah,
and you ride that for as long as you can. And I thought that Flacco going up against a rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, advantage. The Browns had a little bit of advantage there. But it's a team game, and the Texans are. I think it's pretty obvious they were just a better team, and they definitely performed better when it mattered most. So,
yep.
hats off to them. And sorry for the Cleveland Browns. Another year, no playoff wins.
Nobody feels sorry for the Cleveland Browns. So don't pretend that you do. All right, Chiefs and Dolphins. I expected the Chiefs to win, not because the Dolphins can't play in cold weather, because let's be honest. I mean, these are NFL players. They played in cold weather before, all of them, growing up
Yeah.
at some point. I don't care if you played in Miami for a long time for your career. You played a cold game somewhere in college and high school, you name it. So it was going to impact everyone the same, I thought. But Arrowhead is a really cool place to. I mean, I might even put it on my top 5 of places to watch a game, because that place is loud. It can get
That's
loud.
That's the number one football stadium I haven't been to yet that I definitely want to, at least outdoors anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately, the last game I was there was last year, I think, and when the Cowboys were in town, and I don't think Dak could hear what was going on. That's why they got beat. But I thought the atmosphere is going to give a little bit of an advantage to the Chiefs, and the head games too, because everybody's saying, "Oh, Dolphins can't win. Dolphins can't win." When everybody's telling you can't win, I mean, it's sometimes hard to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can have an impact in your psyche. So 26-7. I mean, it wasn't that bad of a game. It was kind of close. Again, until the Chiefs ran off with it. So
I think, yeah, I expected the Chiefs to win. I do think that the weather, regardless, was going to play a factor into it. I can get more into that in a second. But the thing that people kind of need to remember is the Dolphins have lost like 4 edge rushers. Like they're and they're better players too. That's a lot to overcome. They didn't lose this game because I kind of thought they were going to lose this game because their defense was just potentially going to get shredded. With all these injuries to overcome. I mean, I know they still got a lot of talent, especially in the secondary, but um, you lose that many players, and then you brought in like Justin Houston off the street, Melvin Ingram off the street. I mean, I know these guys are veterans, but like I don't know. I had a lot of concerns about guys like Bruce Irvin coming off, just going right into games and being expected to perform. But to be honest, their defense did fine. It's their offense. This is a team. Let's call it like this. The Dolphins put up 70 points in a game this year. This team was built to win on offense, and they didn't show up. And yes, I 100% think that weather affected them. If this game was in a dome, the Dolphins might have won. I might have picked the Dolphins to win this game.
oh
And
wow.
that's not a disrespect to anything. I still probably would have picked the Chiefs. I would have given the Dolphins a better chance. But they're built on speed.
And
And
if you have a good game plan against Tyreek Hill, though, doesn't that give you a little bit of an advantage because you make the team maybe not so, maybe one dimensional, or the weapons that you're looking at, they're not number one weapons either,
yeah,
at wide
and they did a
receivers.
really good job at taking away the run game too.
Yeah.
The Chiefs were not gonna. And Tyreek still beat them deep once because he's insane. Um, but it's really tough to throw a football in that sort of weather. It's also really tough to catch a football in that sort of weather too. But if you want to take your deep shots, it seems like they were content with letting them attempt it, but they weren't going to let Tyreek get too by. I know Waddle had a couple of good attempts where he kind of went more uh, not as vertical downfield, more horizontally, where he was able to kind of burn people. But yeah, I think look, the Dolphins, you when you're a team built on speed and the elements naturally take a little bit of that advantage away, you got issues, and you have to play a near flawless game, and they didn't. And I see a lot of people like ripping Tua. I mean, he did not play well. Might have had one of his worst games, if not the worst game of the season. But a lot of these issues, in my opinion, were weather related, and that is a problem. It's definitely a problem. Because like you said, in the NFL, you're going to play in this type of shit. So, maybe not in Miami, but I think the questions are valid. Of like, I always thought it was funny how people used to like. It's like the Aaron Rodgers thing. Aaron Rodgers would always dominate in the regular season, and they wouldn't play well in the playoffs sometimes when they're home field advantage in Green Bay, and they would lose a lot. And then I would say, well, what's the difference? What's the major difference between weather in September, October, even November, and then December, January in Wisconsin? I mean, it's freezing. It's tough. It's not offensive weather football. And when you're a team built around offensive firepower, if you can't do it, if you can't score at will, if you can't just willingly beat teams with speed, it's going to be near impossible to win. So I think the Dolphins, very good team, very good coach. McDaniel is not the problem. You're not going to find a better quarterback than Tua. Tua's, I mean, I got injury concerns with Tua long term, but in terms of like talent, you're not going to find anyone better. But I think they have to kind of fix their flaw a little bit of not just being pure speed. I think that was their flaw that was pointed out. I think they need to figure out. What I would do is I would get more physical. I would figure out guys to be less reliant on speed, where we still have Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Achane and all these guys that can burn you. But we need to be able to win in any style of football. And I think the Dolphins proved this year that they were very one-dimensional in terms of it was a track meet and they could score at will. And when it worked, they could embarrass teams. When
What are
it didn't,
some what are some quarterbacks that perform well in cold or hazardous weather? Doesn't have to be like right now, but in general.
I mean, I would say Mahomes is pretty good at it. Um, Brett Favre was pretty good at it. But no, it's valid. I mean, who was a really good? I think Big Ben actually was very
That
good.
was who I had in mind. So
That's kind of yeah.
I think of Big Ben, I think of Tom Brady.
Yep, Brady didn't seem to be affected too much.
He knew what to
Yeah,
do. He could deflate those balls.
yeah, exactly. Gotta do what you gotta do. Um, I think Josh Allen's a pretty damn good cold weather quarterback. I know he's had his issues here and there, but
That dude reminds me of, when we played football growing up, every time it snowed, you go outside and play football with your friends, right? He reminds me of that one guy you always knew when it's snow football weather time, he was just gonna do whatever it took, and nobody could stop him. That's who
yep,
he reminds me of. That dude gets out there in crazy weather or whatever the situation is. He plays like he's in his backyard just roasting people. I don't know why he plays so well.
he's good, and they're hot. He's big though. I mean, a lot of these guys are big boys. They can grip. Got to be able to grip the football. It's really important. Um,
Sorry, Kenny
and
Pickett.
yeah, maybe. And then another thing too is you got to have an absolute cannon to throw it through some of these conditions. And you talk about all these quarterbacks we just mentioned who played well. Big Ben monster, Josh Allen monster. Tom Brady's just the best ever, so he's kind of an anomaly.
Yeah.
But like so it's that's kind of what you look for, and the ability to not just beat you in the air, but to be able to move on the ground, which is why I feel like Lamar Jackson, like I'm interested to see how Lamar plays this week. I feel like he's gotten a bad rap that he hasn't played overly amazing in the playoffs. And I think that some of it is fair. But I think this is his opportunity to kind of shut a lot of people up. But I'm really looking forward to the games this week. I really am. Like, I think all of these games are winnable for either team. So we can talk more about that.
Yeah. It'll be
too.
cold in Buffalo in Baltimore for sure. So we'll figure it out. Okay. Cowboys Packers, the game that nobody saw coming, not even the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I guess they didn't even show up till the third quarter, but I
I
don't
mean,
even know what to say. Like, you put up, I mean, you got the turnovers, you got the Packers running it down your throat, you got breakup and coverage. I don't know. They had like two long plays where receivers were just all by themselves. Like,
yeah.
you can't be doing that.
I'll say this: the Cowboys are getting shredded on like offense. A lot of people are blaming the offense and Dak and all this shit not showing up. Their defense was the worst defense in the week last week. I mean,
And why were there no adjustments? They were playing zone, what seems like for the entire game when they hadn't done that in 17 weeks.
it's very weird. I don't know if there was game plan specific issues there. I don't think they thought that Jordan Love can beat them. I can't prove that. But that to me, that's what the game plan was. We play a lot of zone. We're going to try and get there, and we don't trust you to make the right reads. And I think Jordan Love, and I'll give LaFleur credit too, but they had an amazing game plan. They put it all together. Aaron Jones also, I did not expect him to kind of just do whatever he wanted. Um, and that was honestly a part of the reason why they were so successful, their ability to run the ball so effectively. But I mean, Jordan Love looked like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it was like from even to his like standing in the pocket to hopping on his like toes and throwing sidearm fadeaway shots like right on the money. I mean, it's one thing that we're going to bring up in our segment later. It's not to be a spoiler there, but I mean, Jordan Love, what a statement that guy has made, and hats off to LaFleur, hats off to the Packers. I don't know what the hell they've got going on in their QB. They're the QB factory. I know it was the joke that the Eagles are the QB factory, but I mean, how they can go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers And now it looks like Jordan Love is going to pick up right where they left off. It's interesting, and they have a very interesting track record of developing quarterbacks. And I think a lot of people weren't sold on LaFleur as a head coach. They thought he was maybe, carried by Rodgers. And I think all that shit is put to bed. I mean, what he did this year with Jordan Love in the second half, he won't win Coach of the Year, but it is worthy enough to win Coach of the Year. What they have done and put together. Jordan Love second. I mean, he's top 5 MVP conversation the second half of this season. Jordan Love.
We'll see what happens in San Francisco, because that can change people's minds really quick too. Yeah. So,
hey, so yeah, hats off to and I think I can't prove this, but I think the Cowboys overlooked them a little bit.
It felt that way, right?
It's what it looked like. They looked like they got punched in the mouth. Their defense never adjusted, and the offense really never. Once they punted a few times, the game was over. Pretty. Did not see that coming. One can get more into. That's another topic I'm going to talk about later.
All right, Detroit and LA. So that game was pretty fun. It was a close game. I guess people were booing Stafford when he showed up, and that hurt their feelings. I don't know, but what do you expect? The Detroit Lion fans are they're passionate about their team. That means they're going to hate you if you're not in their team. So I thought it was a good game. I thought that the Rams could, potentially come back and win in the end. Didn't happen.
Yeah. No, that was the game of the week, in my opinion. It was awesome. Stafford going back to the Lions. Pretty cool. Yeah, it was. I mean, they were a couple of plays away from, the Rams. I thought for a minute the Rams were going to win that game.
Right.
I did pick the Lions. I'm glad they pulled it out. I'm happy for Detroit. I mean, that's the first time Detroit's won a playoff game since I've been alive. So that's pretty crazy.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure. If that's wrong, we can edit that out. But pretty sure that's the case. That's the first time they won a playoff game.
No, if you're wrong, we're not editing anything for sure.
Yeah, fair. So yeah, it's just it's awesome. And again, I feel really good for Jared Goff. That I feel like it gets lost in that. Everyone's like, "Oh, Stafford coming back to the Lions," but Jared Goff. It didn't end very well for him in LA, and that had to have felt so good on so many levels. But he also brought Detroit their first playoff win in a decade. So, yeah, it's awesome. It was a great game. Kyren Williams hurting his hand and not being able to play most of the fourth quarter, I think really, really hurt the Rams.
He had probably 10 carries or let me see, 13 carries to end the game. So yeah, that's not, they probably missed them.
Yeah. So that, injuries are going to happen. Things are going to adjust. Puka Nacua, I mean, you want to talk about another unreal rookie season. I mean, unbelievable. If he probably should still win rookie, like him and Stroud are going to be competing for offensive rookie of the year anyway. But
he's productive. But I mean, does he have a lot of yards after catch? I don't know if Stafford's just feeding him when he's open. He's really good at getting open, or is he good at running away from people?
Mix of everything. I mean, I think he is towards the top of the list of yards after the catch. I should confirm that. But yeah, I think a majority of his yards have come after the catch.
And a lot of people don't understand, like, you can have a good, and this is one thing when you talk about Amari Cooper, that guy's great, but Amari Cooper's not going to give you as many yards after catch as some of these guys. When you have your Williams, you have your Tyreek Hills. Yeah, what happens is, these young guys can create a lot of space for themselves, right? When they're running those routes, and that's the space that allows them to evade that tackle and get those yards. Whereas, who's the guy for Dallas, the second receiver? He's great. He'll come down with a 50-50 ball usually. Yeah. Usually every time he'll come down with the ball, but he's not going to get you a lot of separation. He's not going to get you a big window to throw it into, and he's not going to get you a lot of yards after catch. So if this kid can stay healthy and he keeps doing what he's doing, I mean, are we talking about breaking records down the road? Because I mean, he's doing great.
Yeah, it's really it might be the most impressive rookie wide receiver season we've ever seen. So we'll see. I think the league will adjust. I do think that having Cooper Kupp on the field at the same time helps. Now, I'm not taking anything away from what Nakua has done, but it was kind of like that AJ Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster thing back in the day, if you remember, where obviously teams aren't going to let AJ Brown beat you or Antonio Brown beat you.
Yeah.
So Juju was always one-on-one, and at the time, one-on-one, he was probably going to win against the guy who wasn't the best on the team. So I think that definitely helps. What I think is going to be interesting is how teams adjust next year. Are they going to is Kupp still going to be the guy that they're not going to let beat, or is it going to be Nakua? And it's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to see what teams do to play them. But I'll tell you what, if the Rams would have won that game, I might have picked them to go to the Super Bowl because they're they really were putting it all together and playing their best at the end of the year. And Stafford's so good. People kind of forget about Stafford. I feel like I know he won the Super Bowl. I know he put up so many good years in Detroit, but was kind of irrelevant because they were never relevant. He really is so good. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, caliber quarterback. So I'm happy that they kind of put that on display. It was a really good game. I expected it to be one of the better games, and it delivered. And yeah, the Lions should be ecstatic, and now they get to host another home game, which is great for the city. Who knows? Maybe we'll get since Eminem is the front man for the Lions, and maybe we'll get the ultimate battle of Eminem's Lions versus Taylor Swift's Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The headlines write themselves.
That is a concert right there. So the one game that I was hoping would be great, the Steelers and the Bills.
Yeah. I mean, the Steelers put up a fight. It didn't start out very well. I thought I was getting very close to calling that game over very early.
I almost did, and I was watching it at O'Brien's with the Black and Gold group, and man, you could hear a pin drop in that place every time, from the turnovers, from just the defense watching this guy run through it. They just didn't bring it, and it was like everything that could go wrong went wrong that first half.
Yeah, it was a rough week for Pennsylvania football, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I really thought that, even after the first half was over, I thought, hey, maybe there's a chance, and we get a field goal coming out and we're down by 10 or whatever, but it just didn't really happen. So I thought, like you, the Bills were going to win this one. I think you're picking the Bills to go pretty far. I don't know if this is one of the last runs for Tomlin in terms of having, making playoffs and having a winning season, because next year is going to be a battle between figuring out whether Kenny Pickett is the guy or making plans for the future. Because if he goes half a season not producing what we're looking for in Pittsburgh, then they're not going to run this thing out, right? And if you still have a true number 2 or number 3 quarterback backing him up, we're not going to go far next year.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of make a case. It's amazing they went as far as they did with Pickett, Trubisky, and then now Mason Rudolph. It's the reason why I didn't really think they had a realistic chance to win the game. One, their best player, Watt, wasn't playing.
Yeah,
that's he is a borderline MVP caliber. He is an MVP caliber player.
I think he won 2 games all by himself this year.
That's how much he impacts the game. So you're already in a huge hole there against going up arguably against the best offense in the league without your best defensive player. And Rudolph honestly has played pretty well, but unless he had like this like magic Nick Foles run in him, Joe Flacco type run in him, I don't think anyone really expected much out of him.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, I think he's proved that like the Steelers should keep him around, whether he's the backup or the third string next year. You can do a lot worse. maybe some team.
He's been a great insurance policy. He's been a great backup. I mean, since he stepped foot in Pittsburgh. So I think that the organization understands that, and they know that that they can count on him to be consistent when he comes in. So that's always good to
Yeah.
have there in your back pocket.
And I think it's come out that Tomlin is coming back. I know there was some speculation that he was unhappy or he might walk away or do.
Did he not answer that? Did he not?
I think he did today, actually.
Oh, did he? Okay.
I think he said that, yeah, he's planning on coming back. I know he's got one more year in his contract, so he wasn't too worried about it.
Hope he doesn't start acting like Belichick in press conferences. So
yeah, we'll see. I know he stormed off, which I get. I mean, I wouldn't be answering those types of questions after. I'd be super emotional too. But yeah, no, I think the biggest thing for the Steelers is you gotta get it's the quarterback, right? Have you seen enough to make the determination that Pickett's not the guy? I would argue yes, personally. I would.
Yeah, I think they'll give him half the season, and then they're gonna start either pressing him or I mean, he's gonna feel the heat. The Steelers have been a winning football team for a long time, and I don't think they're okay with going out there and throwing, even one season of 6 or 7 wins. So
right, and and you got to see who's available, right? I mean, I look, I have no idea what the Steelers are going to do, but if Russell Wilson becomes an option, and do you consider going that route? If Justin Fields is available, I would make a case that I would put all my eggs in that basket and try and make a big offer to try and get Justin Fields.
I would have liked Baker to come to
yeah.
last
I
year.
don't think Baker's leaving Tampa
Not anymore. Yeah.
Anymore. But I think it depends who's available. It depends what their options are. I don't think where they're going to be in the draft, there's going to be in a position to take their first round pick on a guy who's definitively going to be better than Kenny Pickett.
Right.
Maybe. But I think that's going to be a risky scenario where you're either going to be reaching or you're going to be drafting for tools and hoping that you can develop. I don't think that's the right way to go about. Personally, I don't. But maybe. I mean, Jalen Hurts was a second round pick, and that seemed to work out okay. But yeah, I don't know. That's the number 1, 2, and 3 priority, in my opinion, for the Steelers. Is you got to get the quarterback. If you don't get the quarterback right, nothing else matters. You can have they did. They had an amazing defense. But you're not going to beat the Bills. You're not going to beat the Chiefs. These guys aren't going anywhere, and you're going to have to put up points. You're going to have to score. And my opinion is Kenny has not done anything to justify guaranteeing him the job next year. Now, I'm not saying he can't be the guy, but I would at minimum at least be bringing in competition.
Joe Flacco. No. All right, well, we'll see what happens next year. All right, let's talk about the Eagles. Your Eagles and the Bucks. I mean, listen, we didn't know which way this game was gonna go. I thought both teams had a chance to come out of that rut they were dealing with and put a game together. They were both due for a good game to get, from beginning to end. It just so happens that the Bucks did it, and the Eagles really did not do much.
The Eagles completed the collapse, and in my opinion, they really didn't play a complete game all year. The Dolphins game is probably the closest thing that they had to a complete game, and even there, I think they left some stuff on the board. I was not confident. I just feel like everything has been spiraling, and if you don't really believe that you can win, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if 49ers embarrassing us was like the nail in the coffin. But like literally every single player on the team regressed hard from the first half of the season to the second half of the season. I can't think of a single player that played better in the second half of the season. And almost everyone got worse. So yeah, I mean, I think I've been saying it all year. The Eagles have been getting out game planned, out coached the entire season. They were getting away with it because of their talent. That stopped happening in the second half of the season, really the last 7 games of the season. And when they got embarrassed early last week against the Giants, that was like to me all I needed to see, where they shouldn't even have been playing in the first place. That's a different conversation. But you don't go out against one of the worst teams in the league and just get embarrassed, to the point where, I mean, it was literally insult to injury because AJ Brown got hurt, didn't play this week. Jalen Hurts got hurt. Everything went wrong, and it was just kind of like one of those things where I didn't see any way that they were going to come back and win this game. I said it to you. I think they would have lost to the Panthers last week. I really do. I think if that were Bucks or Eagles Panthers, the Panthers would have won that game. That's how bad the Eagles have just collapsed.
They won a lot of one-score games all year, but then they lose by 2, 3, and 4 scores. Like, how does that happen?
I think the team quit. And I hate saying that. I respect all these guys. All right. I hope almost all of them are back next year. But there was a real lack of accountability here somewhere. And with the team loaded up with veterans who just came off of a Super Bowl victory, I mean, we got first ballot Hall of Famers in Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson. We've got Fletcher Cox, who maybe isn't going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but has a shot at being in the Hall of Fame, definitely will be in the Eagles Hall of Fame. Brandon Graham, 100% going to the Eagles Hall of Fame. There's all these leaders. And even last year, right, it was like kind of like people, they were rallying behind Jalen Hurts. That wasn't there this year. And I don't know, like, we lost our coordinators, sure. But they still looked like a Super Bowl contender the first half of the season. I mean, they started out 10-1. You know how hard that is to do? Like,
right,
for any, like, so I don't know. I think Sirianni lost the team somewhere. I don't know why they were so stubborn in adjusting their game plan. Last year, we would just run the ball. And I thought there were times last year we could run the ball every play and still beat every team in the league. That's lean behind our offensive line. And that's when we had Miles Sanders, who was not as good as DeAndre Swift as our main.
And I think a healthy Hurts makes a difference too. If he could run more, if you're a defense and he's not going to try and get out of the pocket too much, then yeah, you don't plan for that. But if you got to worry about that extra, set of legs, it makes it difficult.
Yeah. Just a lack of execution. And then without AJ Brown, and we couldn't rely on just pure talent alone. I mean, Devontae Smith's a stud. I think he proved that he is a legit wide receiver one, in case people were doubting that. But, I kind of was hoping more from Dallas Goedert this year, to be perfectly honest. I know he had some injuries. I expect more from him. I don't think the scheme was great. And I just don't understand the Eagles' obsession to just constantly run these little bubble screens, these little wide receiver screens, these little, like.
Did you hear the crowd chanting? No more screens. No more screens.
Literally a chant. Like, and it's just like, what? I just don't get it that teams knew what we were running. It was just a disaster. It was a top to bottom disaster. And I don't know if you're Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman watching that game, thinking that I can have any confidence in any single person on that coaching staff, except for maybe Jeff Stoutland, who's definitely earned it because he's the best offensive line coach probably ever. How can you have any confidence in any of these guys coming back? I mean, the defensive coordinator is gone, but they already fired Desai. Patricia was worse. They're gone. I know Brian Johnson is getting head coaching interviews, and I think that shows you a lot of where the league thinks the blame is. I don't think a lot of people think I think it's more on Sirianni than Brian Johnson league-wide. Brian Johnson wouldn't be getting head coaching interviews if that weren't the case. So, but with that being said, like, I do not want Brian Johnson to be the Eagles head coach at all. I don't want anyone involved with this offense to be involved, to be honest, from the coaching staff. But he might be really good. I don't know. But those changes are definitely coming. I get it. Sirianni's been there for 3 years. They made the playoffs all 3 years. They won. They almost won the Super Bowl. They went to a Super Bowl, but they also went 1-and-out twice to the Bucks both times, actually, which is kind of funny. In the playoffs and in between that, and if you kind of look at it from the aggregate, besides like their you take Shane Steichen out of the equation from running the offense. Besides their really good start this year, which again was still kind of flawed, they've been an average team, but they had a very favorable schedule last year and beat the crap out of a lot of bad teams and a lot of bad quarterbacks. And this year, the thing that was so concerning is they actually beat good teams and then would lose to the Cardinals, lose to the Giants. Like, and it's just like good teams don't do that. I mean, I went to 2 games this year. One was the Jets, and that was the biggest display of incompetent football I've ever seen. Like we could have kneeled if we just need the ball, like literally QB kneel the entire second half, they would have won that game. that's how big of an implosion how bad that was. And then this week, which they got their ass kicked too. So to me, it's like they always joke they got to play to their standard. They did. That was their standard. They were playing above and beyond their standard because the talent was there.
They
But the
had
coach,
a good smoke and mirrors run after that loss to the Jets because they
Yeah.
beat the Dolphins, they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Chiefs and the Bills.
it makes no sense. And I get it. Like it was one of the tougher schedules in the league, but they did the hard part. Like, and sure, there's gonna be wear and tear, but like Jalen didn't miss time. It'd be one thing if there was like a ton of key injuries as an excuse. Really, up until the playoff game, most of our star players were all playing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, how much patience does Philadelphia have for a rebuild? Like, if you get rid of the coach,
this isn't a rebuild. This is like this is a weird scenario. This isn't a rebuild. This is a reload, and like you hire a coach to go try and win again next
so
year.
you can get the goal is to get a coach that'll get you there next year, right away.
There's no rebuild. It can't be a rebuild
Now,
because if there's
who has done that? Who has come in and taken whatever team? I don't care how good the team was, replaced the coach. I mean, sometimes you get rid of the coach because the team is not doing well. So who comes in, replaces the coach, and takes that good team somewhere right away? Has that happened?
did it happen.
Who?
John Gruden
Okay.
to go over Dungy's team.
Is he available?
Yes. I also think you got to look at the market, right? You got to, market conditions. If Nick Sirianni was an available free agent right now, would any team want him as the head coach? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. I would be very interested to find out. I hope we find out.
I mean, I'd say today there are a lot better coaches out there available. You got Vrabel, I don't know if Belichick really wants to coach again, but if he does, he's out there. You got Harbaugh showing interest. So today, no, he's screwed. I mean,
yeah, no, and that's the thing is like you look at all these good. I mean, some of the best coaches ever maybe could be available. Yeah. And personally, like Vrabel would be my top guy. We would have to figure out. My dream pairing would be Vrabel as the head coach and Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, even though we'd probably lose Bieniemy in a year or two. But if we can't, that would be my dream scenario. There's a couple of other scenarios that I would be very okay with. But yeah, I think you gotta look at the team, you look at the circumstance, and look at the collapse. Just focus on what you're seeing, right? How could you have any confidence besides the fact that we went to the Super Bowl last year? I get that. But besides that, this year, especially the last 2 months, what does Nick Sirianni do to instill confidence? And I don't have an answer for that. Like, who has an answer for that? I'd love to hear it.
Do you think any player moves could do that? Bring somebody in the locker room that will have more leadership and take on the role that maybe they thought was missing this year?
Yeah, I think that I don't have a player specifically in mind, but I think that they need someone in the QB room to help Jalen Hurts. I would sign Nick Foles. I mean, a guy like that who's won a Super Bowl here, knows what it takes to win and deal with the fan base and help him learn, progress. Like that's the biggest concern with Jalen Hurts. The biggest concern from my perspective after this year is Jalen Hurts ended the last year. I mean, I think he got voted as the second best player or third best player in the league by the NFL Top 100. And everyone consensus top 5 quarterback in the league. Now there's some people who are going to be questioning that. And, he made some mistakes for sure. He had some flaws. But the Eagles need to make sure, we've seen this before. We've seen them have success with the young quarterback. Now he kind of got hurt, and that was the difference. He came back too early, and his team also won a Super Bowl without him. I'm talking about Carson Wentz, and so there's a little bit more that went into that. But they really ruined Carson Wentz by forcing him to come back too early, and I think just winning without him really screwed him up psychologically.
What if
Jalen
Hurts
Hurts-
can get one more second in the pocket, though? One more second
Yeah.
in the pocket.
But the thing is on paper, the Eagles have the best offensive line in the league, and there's not going to be better next year if Kelsey's gone.
Right.
So that's they will probably have to invest. I mean, I know Jurgens is there. Probably will move over to center. Lane Johnson came out saying he's coming back, so that's good. So they still will have a good offensive line. But yeah, I mean, whether it's a better pass protecting tight end, whether it's a better pass protecting running back, a little bit more depth on the offensive line, or to my opinion, just more creativity on offense. Like, I think those are things you can do to help. And I think bringing in a new coach, a new scheme would be more beneficial than any one player.
Well, with
also,
that,
yeah.
let's go into our 3 strikes, because I think I'm pretty sure I know what your first strike is. So let's go. You go first. Strike 1.
My strike 1 is, and it's not going to be just Eagles related. This is going to be NFC East.
The
Nick
NFC
Sirianni
least.
and Mike McCarthy both have to be fired. I get it.
Wow.
They had success. I get it. It's tough. I mean, Dak might have probably had his best year ever, but it's not. People can be like, "Oh, you have too high of a standard." It's just true. The Cowboys have been in this position forever. They're a good team. They get to the playoffs. They don't win. And we've seen this with multiple coaches. This is another retread now with McCarthy. And McCarthy is a good coach. And honestly, he probably will. If he got fired, wouldn't be surprised if he's coaching somewhere else. But I mean, look, I'm an Eagles fan. So like I love the Dallas dysfunction, and it made the Eagles losing a lot easier to tolerate that the Cowboys blew it too. But the Cowboys blowing it, in my opinion, was just so. It's like it's more the same, right? It's like you almost expected it. If it weren't the 7th seed that they were playing, and like a team that like kind of limped into the playoffs, although they have been playing very well, you would have almost expected this. If you would have picked the Cowboys to like blow it somehow historically, right? That's like the running joke. So it's like, I don't know. To me, with the elite coaches that are available, I don't know. I don't see any scenario where you could. I get it. Look, they had success, but for the Cowboys, for the Eagles, 1 and out in the playoffs isn't successful. I'm sorry if that pisses off people's fan bases based on expectations.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and maybe when my wife hears this podcast, she's probably gonna be mad. But why do you grade the coaches with 2 different grade cards? Like, why is it that you only look at the postseason history as one thing, and you don't look at the overall work that they've done that year? Because I mean, every team is going to have that one game, right? And I know it might be the first game of the postseason, but like you said, the Cowboys put up a great freaking season. You had Dak with monster numbers. You had CeeDee Lamb became like the highest receiving receiver for the Cowboys in a season. So you had a lot of productivity. They went undefeated at home. I mean, what else can you ask for? And then you have that one bad game. Can you not just grade the whole season as a whole and say, well, it just so happened that game came in the playoffs? Or do you have to take into account, well, this is what you're doing in playoffs, and if that's not good enough, you're out, regardless of what else you're doing in the season?
I mean, I would make a case that, I mean, what's the whole point of playing, right? There's one point that every team plays for, besides making money. I get that, but the whole point is to win a Super Bowl.
But
right.
But then what if you get into I mean, this year's different. There are good, coaches out there available. But what if you get in a situation where you do this, like Nebraska, they're going 10-2 every year, and then you fire your coach and then you go 7-4 every year, 7-5, whatever, and never reach 8 or 9 wins anymore. What if that happens and you end up being a Cleveland Brown or something, you know?
It is possible for sure. And I get the devil's advocate part, but I don't know. I feel like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And maybe if they brought back McCarthy or the Eagles bring back Sirianni, that they can come out and they go out and they go on a deep playoff run. It'd be different to me if the Cowboys won a playoff game this year, but they just lost to the 7th seed, like a team that, you know, is, I don't know if this has historically ever happened. This is because this is a new format. But like they literally won home field advantage, partially because the other team in their division really choked it, but they got it. And then once they got there with, they didn't lose at home all year. And they got smoked in the playoffs. To me, it's just like McCarthy got out coached. And if it keeps happening, so look, it might fail, it might not work, but I just think there's better options out there, and they need someone who can win in December and January, mainly January, I guess.
How much of a factor does fan pressure play into this issue?
Oh,
Like, is Jerry gonna be listening to what the media says, what the fans say when making a decision, or is he just making an evaluation based on just what he wants to do and what the team needs to do? Same thing in
the right answer is the fans' thoughts should be meaningless. That's the right answer, and that's the
Yeah.
politically correct answer. But the truth and reality of what we live in is that's just not the case when you're that big of a market. And the Cowboys, I mean, they're America's team, right? They're the most scrutinized team in the league. I mean, I read a stat, and it's my favorite stat ever, that Nick Foles by himself has the same amount of wins in the playoffs than Dak Prescott and Tony Romo combined. That's a long time. That's a long window of six. And so what I'm trying to, and I'm not digging at people, but what I'm saying is like Nick Foles has barely played football in that same span of time that Dak Prescott and Tony Romo have been in the league. You know what I'm saying? Like Foles barely never really been a starter ever, and that's a guy who just kind of gets it done in the postseason, right? And there's other factors. It's not just a quarterback stat. It's not like a coaching stat, but it's just kind of like at some point there needs to be progress. The Cowboys regress this year.
If you look at that stat and race you one, I read that the Green Bay Packers have as many wins in the playoffs at AT&T stadiums as the Cowboys do.
Yeah, I saw that too. So it's just kind of like, look, it is what it is, and it's not fair to McCarthy. I'll be the first one to admit it's not fair to McCarthy. It's fair to Sirianni. You collapsed. This is a choke.
Yeah,
McCarthy just didn't show up in the postseason, but he had a hell of a regular season. It's not good enough in Dallas. Maybe in Carolina, he goes to the Panthers. You'll have years of leash for that. They just want to get back to the playoffs, win the division, make the playoffs. That's a successful season. Cowboys Super Bowl or bust. Losing in the first round is a failure. So, and you have an opportunity to get a better coach. In my
that's
opinion.
how people feel in my household here. All right, my strike one. We're going to talk about quarterbacks giving up. So, we watch Baker scramble a few times this week, and he had a pretty good slide down. So he would give himself up, have a lot of momentum. He knew when to go down so that he wouldn't get hit. I don't want to say that the NFL is sissified now because, we want to protect the quarterback, especially with as fragile as they are, the way they make them now. But Allen was running, untouched by anyone in the defense. And I thought for a second, Josh Allen pretended he was about to stop and go down so that he wouldn't get hit. However, he just did a little shuffle and kept running. How do you feel about quarterbacks giving themselves up and the possibility of them doing a little, fake out to make you think you're going down so that they don't hit them, and then they just keep going and get more yards?
Personally, I hate the rule. I think that the rule should be as soon as the quarterback is beyond the line of scrimmage, he's a runner. It should be he's a running back, he's a receiver, he's a tight end, whatever you want to call it. He's a runner, and he can still slide and give himself up. And but I think the league has to, because the defenders are in a no-win situation. If I go in, I gotta go kill Josh Allen because he's a monster, and if I just go to arm tackle him, he's going to run right through me. So I have to hit him hard, and I have to, stop him. What's he 250? Josh Allen, like he's a big dude. Like I got to actually hit him. So what do you want the defenders to do if they slow up and the quarterback does, runs right by him? It's terrible defense. But if they launch at them or like try to hit him, then the quarterback dives late and he hits them, they're getting penalties called on him. I don't like it. I think as soon as you leave, if you become a runner, you're a runner. You can still slide and give yourself up. And I think there should be like some subjectivity here, which I know people don't like, but like as long as a quarterback's going to get, even if he slides, I still think he can get hit. Now he can't get blown up. There's a difference.
Right.
There's a difference. Guy gets crushed in the head after he's going down, or like guys already down and then they jump on him. That's a penalty. Like, and that should be called as is. But sometimes these quarterbacks, especially like guys like who used to play baseball, like Mahomes is one that I can think of. He does it. Stafford does it too, where he'll just kind of like just slide out of nowhere and then pop right back up. And it's like, I can't prepare for that as a defender. And okay, he slid. It is what it is. But by the time he made that decision, I'm already, I can't pull. I'm running full speed.
Might even be in the air. Yeah.
Right. So I think if I were Roger Goodell, owner of the NFL official rules, I'm getting rid of that rule. I still think you can slide, and wherever you are down when you start the slide, you can give up. But like your contact is going to happen, and that's maybe that's not fair to running quarterbacks, but it's football, and we have to have some rules that aren't heavily as skewed towards offense, which I know everyone loves offense. Offense makes money. It's good for ratings, but like defenders are already so behind the eight ball with all the new rules that are all tailored towards offense. We need to give them some ability to, like, even if they make a little bit of a mistake because they hit the quarterback as he's sliding, as long as they don't destroy him after he clearly already gave it up, like that should be the rule. Like that should be that simple. Like you're a runner. You're a runner. You're playing in the NFL. If you don't want to get hit by 350-pound guys coming at full speed, don't run.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'll put a post up in a survey to see what other people think. I'll put it on Facebook. So remind me, let's create a Facebook page for that. All right, strike two. Let's go.
Strike two. I kind of hinted at this earlier, but I'm going to give him some flowers. Jordan Love. Bravo, my dude. Bravo, Jordan Love. And he is the real deal. I was kind of convinced already, but I was like, I want to see him perform in the playoffs. You never know. You want to see big time situations. And he probably played his best game as a pro in the playoffs. That's big time, man. I played sports my whole life. You played sports. There's a difference between a regular season game and a playoff game. There just is. It's whether or not people want to think. We're human beings. Like we have emotions. We have emotional ties. There's a difference between if we don't win this game, our season is over. Compared to like a regular game in October. So I like to see how players respond. To me, and that's also a big litmus test from a quarterback, in my opinion. That's what I look for in quarterbacks. I want to see how they perform biggest situations when the pressure is at most, the highest point. Jordan Love did that. And I got to give credit to Matt LaFleur. Unbelievable. I think everyone was kind of like expecting to be like a lame duck coach. Rodgers is leaving. If this was a bad year, Jordan Love didn't pan out, he was probably getting fired. And he put together a coach of the year type performance. And they didn't just beat Dallas, they kicked the shit out of them. It was embarrassing. And that's Jordan Love, in my opinion, 90% of the credit there in terms of maybe a little bit. Maybe that's too much because the game planning was very good, but unbelievable performance. And whatever the Packers devil voodoo magic is for this freaking quarterback development plan, it's crazy to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to now looks like Jordan Love. I mean, Jordan Love looks like Aaron Rodgers. It's bizarre. Like his mannerisms are Aaron Rodgers 2.0. Obviously, he's got a long way to go for that, but I mean, he has proved without a shadow of doubt that he is the Packers franchise quarterback. Even if they get destroyed next week,
I was
which
gonna say, how's he gonna do with Nick Bosa in his back pocket?
I don't expect him to do well. I really, that's probably the one game I'd be pretty surprised if the San Fran blew that one. Um, but he's there, and no matter what happens, it's going to be such a good learning experience for him. It's the best defense in the league he's going to face for sure. Maybe the Ravens, but I think 49ers are the best. And it's a huge test, but they're playing with house money now, and it's kind of like the only thing that can negatively affect him, in my opinion, is if he gets like seriously injured. But nothing that happens next week, in my opinion, even if he has the worst game of his career, there's still nothing Packers fans should be upset about. And
the city's behind him 100%. So I think that adds an element to his play because he knows that he has the support of the entire city. So all 700 people.
I also, the last point I have on this is I think that it is very, very important for majority of first year quarterbacks, maybe even some second year quarterbacks, to not come in and start right away. I am a big proponent of this. I think a lot of times quarterbacks get thrown into terrible situations very unfairly. And when that happens to a young player, it can ruin them. I'm not saying it's a one size fits all. Sometimes there's guys that are just like Bryce Young should not have started week 1 from this season. Stroud is probably proving that it was good for him, but even Stroud, I wouldn't have wanted to start. If I were the head coach, I wouldn't have started him week 1.
Yeah, but that's not going to change anytime soon because you have the bad teams who need a quarterback taking the best quarterbacks who want to play because every quarterback comes out of on the draft trying to be the starter. They're not.
Oh, for sure. And there's pressure on teams to play them right away because we took them that high and we're paying them money. But I think that's where teams get caught in the loop of like the immediate. Who cares what the immediate success or like immediate reaction is if it's poor, but 2 years or 3 years from now, it's where you want it to be. Like we got so impatient with quarterbacks because these guys came in right away and started, but like historically that never happened. Like up until like Andrew Luck, maybe Peyton Manning, I guess. Most guys came in and sat, and like Mahomes sat, like I think there's a reason why those guys are set up better for success. I'm not saying they have to sit a whole season or multiple seasons, but I think in this case it actually benefited Jordan Love because he got to sit behind one of the best ever. But yeah, no, and I wouldn't like honestly like even when Jimmy Garoppolo had some success early in his career, I think he benefited a lot from sitting behind Tom Brady. And again, these are crazy circumstances, but I think Jalen Hurts learned a lot not being forced to play right away and then coming in later in the season. There's a lot of history of success of guys doing that, if teams are willing to be patient. And I hope the league, a guy like last year, like Trent Richardson's a good example. He actually played a lot better than I expected him to. But look how Minshew kind of played, and the Colts almost made the playoffs anyway. Yeah. He probably would have benefited from sitting the first couple of games, just to learn. So I don't know. That's one thing I feel like. I get it. You need results now for general managers, head coaches. I get it. But if you're committing to like rebuilding and you're drafting a quarterback, you are rebuilding. What the Texans are doing is crazy. I wouldn't expect that ever. If it happens, yay.
I think Brock Purdy benefited from watching a few games. I don't know. He reinvented himself as a quarterback, so that was crazy.
If Brock Purdy's drafted by the Jets and has to go in right away, is he successful? Probably not.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? It's like if Patrick Mahomes got drafted by the Jets and Sam Darnold got drafted by the Chiefs and they were flipped and they had to sit. Look, I'm not saying Sam Darnold would be Patrick Mahomes or Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have panned out, but would they have been in that good of a situation to succeed? Right. I bet you he wouldn't have been the best player in the league, at least not immediately.
Nope. All right, we're going to go strike 2 for me. So I want to talk about ticket prices, and mainly because I'm mad about this. But, we have the teams sell the tickets. We have the secondary market where the tickets. I understand supply and demand. I understand, the your ability to sell tickets for what they're worth, and they're worth more when it's a better game. So the reason we ended up at the game with the Eagles and Bucks is not because I wanted to go to the Eagles Bucks game, right? I originally bought tickets expecting that the Cowboys would be in Tampa, not knowing that your Eagles would just fall apart in the last month of the season. And the ticket prices at this game were actually below face value the few days before the game. There were a lot of Eagle fans that took advantage of it.
That happened with Rays too.
Right, yeah. So what do you think? Is this a problem to where I mean, Super Bowl tickets are ridiculous. We understand that. And now the average fan is priced out of going to a Super Bowl because you're talking about $10,000 just for one ticket anymore. But for regular season games, playoff games, and things like that, is it a problem that now all the tickets are going to be out there and their prices are going to depend on how good of a game there is? And then there's a lot of people out there that will spend the money to go watch those games, leaving the other people that don't want to or can't spend that money out and can't go, to watch those games. Is that a problem for you, or do you think that's just the way it's going to be?
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit of a problem. I mean, I will say that's kind of like the principles of America,
Yeah.
supply and demand, free market. Um, but there are solutions here. I think the main thing from your problem is the teams when they release those ticket prices at face value, it was just too high. I think face value in general is just valued too high, and I get it. I mean, playoff games are rare, especially or not rare, but like you're only guaranteed one. So sometimes you're not, even if you make playoffs, you're not guaranteed you're even going to get a home game. So I get inflating the prices, and people are going to go. I just think it's bizarre. Like, look, I mean, it's clear it's all dependent on supply, demand, and like how the teams are feeling about the team, of the fans are feeling about their teams. The game on Monday Night Football, week 3 or 4, when the Eagles came here the first time, it was more expensive to go to that game than it was for the playoff game.
Right.
And I think that's because the Eagles fan base hated the team, for lack of a better word.
What about third-party fees? Because I think that's a big problem. When you have, to put it into perspective, let's say a SeatGeek or StubHub, they essentially take my ticket and then they find somebody that wants to buy it, right? So they're essentially a broker, and then they charge me a fee, and then they charge that person a fee. I think from looking at some of the fees on SeatGeek, it was about a 40%, between 30 and 40% markup on the listing price on fees just on the buyer. The seller also was paying upwards to 15 to 20%. So when we look at a ticket price going for, let's say, the Super Bowl, going for $10,000 on StubHub, and then you add another $3,000, $4,000 in fees from these third-party resale, companies, how is that fair?
Not, and they have it set up for that purpose. Until a big disruptor comes in and changes that, I don't know how it's gonna happen. I know like Ed Sheeran has like kind of figured out a way. I don't know if he uses blockchain technology. I really don't know enough about it. I'm not a big Ed Sheeran guy, but I mean, I respect him, but he's not on my playlist constantly. He kind of figured out a way to limit resales. And I know now with like blockchain technology and like NFTs, and people have this false sense of like NFTs are like JPEGs and like worthless pictures. Like that definitely exists, but like there is some practical use cases that you could use, and like actually ticketing events, everything's already done on a mobile. You can't. I haven't been to a Rays game and had to show them my paper ticket in like 5 years at this point. So everything's already done mobily. So if you can kind of like utilize these newer technologies to where we can kind of like, whether it's blockchain, whatever it is, where we can kind of like track, okay, here's face value, here's where it's out. Now here's what it's reselling for, and here's who owns it. And then you can like maybe lock the transaction that you can only like resell it once or something like that. I think you would see a lot less crazy price inflation because people wouldn't be able to buy hundreds of tickets, use bots to just, oh, as soon as it
Right.
goes on sale, I'll grab it as much as I can, and then I can resell. It's like, no, you can only do that once. And again, I'm not trying to get over people's heads or like talking about it. And I'm not an expert by any means, but there's got to be some sort of solution because it is kind of criminal. I mean, and especially like, look, we saw it this year with the whole Taylor Swift fiasco. I mean, like these tickets are going for probably triple what they're actually worth, and that's not a dish. Look, you're worth what everyone's willing to pay for. I get that, but no, it's a problem. And the average fan, like, I mean, money was kind of a factor of why I didn't necessarily want to go to the Bucks Eagles game. It was more I just thought the Eagles were going to get killed, and I didn't want to go see that again. But yeah, I mean, look, I went to the World Series last year and spent like over $1,000 on and the only reason I only went to one game is because I was like, I can't justify doing it again.
Yeah.
And those events are always going to be insane and overpriced. But yeah, no, I think it's a serious problem, and unfortunately, they make so much money. It's almost, I don't want to say it's like too big to fail at this point, but until there's an immediate disruptor or like Ticketmaster doesn't own like the rights to like every stadium, which doesn't make sense to me how that happened, but doesn't seem
Right.
legal. But
What I think is unfair is the act of taking my ticket and selling it to somebody will require some work and some technology to operate. I get it, right? There may be a cost involved with doing that. But are you going to tell me that if I post my $50 ticket and you're going to charge me and you're going to make $30 from my $50 tickets, that is justified if I sell $1,000 tickets for you to make $500?
that's what's
Is the
ridiculous.
same process, is the same amount of work, same amount of resources that you're using SeatGeek or StubHub. So why does it cost us, the consumer, $500 for one
'Cause they
ticket
get away
here?
with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. It should just be a set fee. Here, $20, $20 a fee, whether you're buying a $20 ticket or a $4,000 ticket, $20
Yeah.
fee. It's the same thing.
Yeah. The bananas figure it out. Why can't we all
Yeah.
do that?
So now I'm with you. That's
All right. Strike three for you. What do we have?
all right. This one might be a little bit controversial, but I feel really strongly about it. At least I feel really strongly about it for baseball, but I think I feel strongly about it for football too. I think all new stadiums, it should be mandatory to at minimum have retractable roof capabilities. And I'm not saying they need to be in a dome. I'm not saying all games need to be played inside. I'm saying at minimum, all new stadiums need to have the capability for a retractable roof. It is not good for anyone where a situation like what happened this week when we had to move the Buffalo game to another day. It's not good for advertisers. It's not good for the fans. It's not good for the players. I mean, there's no one bad weather benefits except for bad weather companies who need to like shovel snow. Like, it also, this is just my opinion. You can crucify me for if I'm wrong. I want to see these teams. There's a reason why the Super Bowl's played at a neutral site every year, and besides the one year it was at MetLife, it's always in a nice controlled environment. There's a reason for that. We want to see. We don't want. I want the teams to determine who's going to win.
Not the
I don't want the
elements.
elements
Yeah.
to determine. And I gave the Chiefs and the Dolphins as a perfect example. That game is in the Superdome. I might have picked the Dolphins. They would have had a better chance. And again, you can argue that's good or bad, whatever it is. But like, I just want I don't want any other factors besides the teams deciding it. And it's also great for fans. You know how awesome it is to know that I bought a ticket and there is a 0% chance it's going to get rained out or be affected by weather or have like
Right.
any repercussions at all. Like, to me, sign me up for that. And when it's super hot in Florida or storming in Florida and we're not in 100-degree weather and 100% humidity and there's a tropical storm happening outside, but we're still playing a game at Tropicana Field, like it's so much better for everyone. And it's expensive. If you can't afford to build a stadium with a retractable roof, you can't afford to buy the team. It's that simple.
What's your favorite baseball stadium to watch a game at?
That I've ever been to?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say probably, well, favorite's probably Citizens Bank Park, but that's again a little skewed. But but that doesn't have a retractable roof. I think my favorite stadium that I've been to is Citi Field.
Okay.
And
Now, did you like the atmosphere? Did you like how it felt like baseball, like you grew up playing? Now, compare that to being in a dome.
yeah,
You really want every game to feel the way they feel in a dome, and you won't have that feeling anymore. Because even if you put a roof that you can retract the Citi Field, it's not gonna feel like Citi Field, you know?
yeah. I will say, like, I've been to the Marlins Stadium when it's been open. It's been the Marlins Stadium when it's been closed, and I like it closed better personally.
Yeah. I
I
hate
really,
it
I
both
really,
times equally.
yeah. Um, I think the first stadium I ever been in where it was closed was I was in Arizona. I think I was like 11 or 12 or something like that. And I remember looking, and I was like, well, besides the Trump, it's on more retractable roof. And I remember looking, I was like, this is pretty cool. Like the ability to, actually, I have another answer to you. Toronto, one of my favorite stadiums I've ever
Okay.
been to. And that's another one. And that's actually perfect because I went to two games. The first day was beautiful out. It was nice. It was sunny. It was, and they played that game. The next night, pouring rain, pouring rain. They had that field closed all day. And you know what I got to do that night? I got to watch Roy Halladay throw a complete game shutout against the Yankees because the roof was closed. If that
Yeah,
wasn't a thing, I wouldn't have been able to see that. We were leaving the next day. I wouldn't have been able to see that.
I get
So that's as again, look, people can disagree. You can argue it all you want.
it.
My bottom
No,
line
I'm
is
just giving you shit. I think that as a fan, that is the best case scenario. And yeah, you'll be able to take the elements out of the equation, and I think that's gonna be good for the game. I just remember the first time I went to Minute Maid Park and it felt like I was at the mall. I just didn't like that. But it grew on me. You know, I like the trop. I like to avoid the elements. I think it does well for the game when that happens. So I agree now. I know a lot of people agree with you. So my strike three, we're gonna go to contract. So when you sign a contract, let's say you sign a contract for a gym and you say, I'm gonna go to this gym for 1 year, I'm gonna pay you $20 a month or whatever. And 6 months later, you decide you want out of the contract. You either have to pay a hefty fee or you just can't get out. You have to see your contract through. Why is it okay that athletes can sign, these organizations can sign an athlete to a contract that they don't have to abide by? Either the athletes will decide they don't want to fulfill their contract. You have holdouts because they want to renegotiate the contract. You have trades where you're telling me, okay, I want you to play here for 10 years, but then in 3 years, I'm going to just send you somewhere else anyway. Why are contracts not enforced in sports?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the head coaching thing, right? For it's that's where I think it's kind of ridiculous, where you'll see like these head coaches sign. I mean, what did the Washington or the new Alabama coach? Didn't he just sign with Washington like a 7-year deal or something like that? And
Right.
like a year later, now he's going to Alabama, which I mean, look, it's free market, dude. But yeah, look, you're the contract expert more than me, so I don't know like what the clauses are and like how many times people have to actually like buy things out or get paid out. Um, I mean, obviously, if a guy gets fired, he's going to get all his money. But yeah, no, it's interesting. There probably it should be harder to get out of contracts, in my opinion. It's hard, like you said, it's hard enough to get out. Like if I wanted to break my lease at the apartment right now, we'd have to pay the rest of the remaining, balance or whatever it is to like whatever it would to break the lease, whatever it would cost. Um, why why does that, like you said, going to the gym? If I wanted to cancel my Planet Fitness or like fitness membership, it's going to cost me money. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for it. I think the real answer is because people pay for things. Schools are willing to just throw money at coaches, whether they fire them and say, "Here, take $60 million." Who cares? Whether it's, "Hey, coach, we're going to give you an additional whatever it is to come here. Here, sponsored by the Booster Club of whatever school." Um, It's wild. You don't see it as much in the professional sports unless it's like guys getting promoted. I feel like I think like you see it like a guy might sign like a 2-year deal, like a contract with like as a defensive coordinator, and then gets hired as a head coach. I don't think you can fault anyone for that. That's a promotion. That's not a lateral move. But it's when these guys jump from like head coaching position to another head coaching position, even though it's a better school. Like the
But
one I just gave,
if you sign a
it,
coordinator for 2 or 3 year contract, why is it okay for him to leave next year? Even if it's for
well,
a head coaching job, like you're under
it,
contract, you're supposed to work for me for 3 years.
yeah. Though they're probably, I don't know. You would know better than I do. I would love to talk to an agent. Like, are there
I'm
clauses
just
in
being
contract?
devil's advocate.
I also
That
don't think. I think coordinator positions are just year to year. I don't think. I could be wrong. I don't know. Um,
there are clauses, and I mean, there's always a way out, and money talks. But
right.
it's just, I just want to put that into perspective because when you have a baseball player signing a 10-year contract for $70 million a year, that's not what's going to happen. Let's be honest. I remember when Josh Hamilton signed 10-year contract and he played what, 3, 4 years? Albert Pujols signed a 65-year contract. Who signed 13 years for the Phillies? Yeah, he going to play out 13 years now? You
I
know?
don't know. Apparently, but Boris requested the Phillies for a contract extension this offseason, which was the funniest. I would have loved to have been a part of that conversation. I would have loved to have heard that.
So let's
Um,
not get all hell bent out of long contracts because those things don't mean anything anymore. Money talks. The needs of the team will determine what your contract is from year to year, and there's always a way out. So
yeah. Now and
it
look,
is.
look. I mean, now the Dodgers got the best player in the world for $3 million or $2 million a year for the next 10 years.
Yeah. How long you think he'll be there? I don't think he'll be there 10 years.
So
Nope.
I think he'll be there for as long as he is playing in Major League Baseball and wants to be. Um, I just don't think the Dodgers are going to be bad for the next like 8 years.
No, they won't. But I think after 5 years, he'll either renegotiate the contract, or if he decides that he's on his way out, he might he might buy out after 7, something like that. But I guarantee you, he's probably not going to be there for 10 years because
It wouldn't
even
surprise me.
what the money is now, if he gets better, what if he comes back in 2 years and starts throwing, 20 games a year and going 15-2 or something like that? He's gonna renegotiate that contract. That
Yeah,
contract would mean nothing at that point, and he's gonna want more money. He's gonna want to be the highest paid player at the time, which 5 years from now, who knows what that will be. Um, so so yeah, you think, oh, we signed him to a contract and we can guarantee we'll have this player for this much money for this long. That doesn't mean anything because if he gets better, he's gonna want more money and you're gonna renegotiate so you don't lose him. So when that happens, he's probably not gonna play out 10 years under that same contract.
I say that's even more relevant in football too, where it's not fully guaranteed contracts and
Yeah.
guys will sign like 6-year deals, but it's really just a 2-year deal because that's all the guaranteed money.
Yeah.
That's like a little bit different, but which is hilarious. That's another conversation. Why football is where it's not fully guaranteed, where it's probably the one sport where it should be fully guaranteed.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. So let's talk about our last segment of the show, our top five. And I know that I think what your top five is going to be related to. So what's your top five?
So, in the spirit of probably Jason Kelsey being his last game ever, I thought it would be appropriate for everyone if I could give my top 5 favorite Eagles players of all time. Um, Again, I'm not saying these are the best, although most of them are. Um, this is my top 5 favorite Eagles players, and I'll start at number 5. A guy currently on the team, Lane Johnson, right tackle. Um, Probably the best tackle I've ever seen on the Eagles. Right or left, doesn't matter. Definition of consistency. I'm going to read you my favorite stat about Lane Johnson. You ready? The Eagles, this is from statmuse.com. The Philadelphia Eagles have an all-time record of 89, 53, and 1 when Lane Johnson plays. That's 143 games. I'll repeat it one more time. 89, 53, and 1. 89 wins, 53 losses, 1 tie. Hilarious. Um, with the win percentage of 626. It's a pretty high win percentage. In games without Lane Johnson, which is 36, the Eagles are 14-22, which is a 0.389 win percentage. And it goes even deeper than that. With him on the field, they average 26.1 points per game. With him not playing, they average 22.7 points per game. This is the big one, in my opinion. Their fourth down percentages with Lane Johnson playing historically on fourth down. This is amazing. 59.3%. They're essentially 60% conversion rate on fourth down, which is the money down when Lane Johnson playing. Without him, 40.6%, 40%. So they get it less than half the time when he doesn't play. I go through all these just to show, I've said it for a long time, Lane Johnson might be the most important player on the Eagles. They do not win when Lane Johnson doesn't play. So that's something to back it up. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He'll be in the Eagles Ring of Honor. He just came out and said he's going to play for at least another year or two, which thankfully that's the case. So that's my breakdown on Lane Johnson, number 5. But he may even end up higher on this. But
all right.
I'll go number 4, DeSean Jackson. This guy was one of my all-time favorites. It's like the jersey I always wear when I go to any games, DeSean Jackson. That was a high school graduation gift from one of my really good friends.
Nice.
Which is incredible. So it's my favorite. It's my favorite jersey I own. DeSean Jackson's the man. I'll never forgive Chip Kelly for what he did. Just getting rid of him for no reason. My favorite wide receiver of all time. That dude could score at any point of the field. Essentially Tyreek Hill before Tyreek Hill existed, is DeSean Jackson. And up until Tyreek Hill, I would say was the best deep threat of all time. I'll say Tyreek Hill is a little bit better, but DeSean's right there. Number 3, Weapon X, Brian Dawkins. Best defensive player I think I've seen ever on an Eagle, wearing Eagles uniform anyway. No, it's hard to quantify different positions, but he was so good and so valuable, team leader. I mean, I would love for him to get involved with this team. And I think he still does do some consulting for the Eagles, but one of the best to ever do it. Played in a peak of era with like safeties with like Ed Reed, the Troy Polamalu, like that kind of era. And Dawkins still, in my opinion, like he put it all together. Easily in the conversation for one of the best safeties of all time, in my opinion. And he brought an identity to the defense, a team that is desperately missing. He was a player you feared, you didn't want to play against. And I miss that in the modern NFL. I don't know, Brian Dawkins, forever love that guy. In fact, if I ever get a pet, I probably will name it Dawkins. Number 2 and number 1 are super close. They really are. It's going to surprise a lot of people what I'm about to say if you know me. Number 2 for me is Nick Foles. I know, shocked, not number 1. I get it. He probably should be. I've dedicated most of my life to Nick Foles at this point. But he comes in at 2 for me. Obviously, he was the Super Bowl winning quarterback. I believed in Nick Foles before anyone else believed in Nick Foles. I have receipts to prove it. My Instagram page was a shrine to Nick Foles when I was in college. Love the guy. Still don't think we have a Super Bowl if he's not the quarterback. I don't think the Eagles would win the Super Bowl. And even Jason Kelce said it himself, like, we won the Super Bowl because of Nick Foles. Like, don't get it twisted. What he did was incredible. It's one of the greatest runs I think we've ever seen. People were surprised by it. I wasn't as surprised by it. But yeah. And again, he's another person I would love to bring back into the organization. I think he still has some football left in him if he wants that. I know he's a pickleball player now. But yeah, Nick Foles comes in at number 2. But number 1, man, and it's got to be Jason Kelce. And the reason why I put him at 1 over Foles is just for how long Jason's been a part. Like, I really almost don't remember life without Jason Kelce as an Eagle, as crazy as that sounds. I know it's only been 14 years, so it's really not that long. It's been almost half my life. But what he has done, I mean, most people probably can't even name 5 centers in the league. Most people,
Right.
some people don't even know what the center position is. And I think now with the podcast and obviously with Travis dating Taylor Swift, everyone kind of knows the Kelseys now. But even before all that happened, everyone knew who Jason Kelce was.
Yeah.
And before they had the number one podcast, before they had, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift dating, before all that, it was always known. You knew who Jason Kelce was. Do you can you name, if you ask the average fan, can you name me 3 centers in the league? Besides Jason Kelce and maybe the center on their favorite team, do you think they'd be able to do it? I don't
I
think
don't
so.
know. Nope.
I think center is one of, if not the most underappreciated position. I think he is the best center to ever do it. He's definitely the best Eagles center ever. I have never seen a center better. Mangold was pretty close. Um, but for the longevity that Kelce's done, he's still the best center in the league today, which is crazy. He's almost getting better with age. Can't say enough about Jason Kelce. He's been a pro. I'm devastated that he's gone, but I want him to do what's best for his family. He owes us nothing. Jason, I don't know. You won't hear this. I was yelling at you a lot. So hopefully you heard that at the game.
I'm sure he heard you. What you should have done is brought a sign and said, Jason, you're my number one, and give him a friendship bracelet. I hear that works.
Should have. I should have. I was worried about the rain. Stupid elements.
I know, right?
Uh,
Well,
but
that's a pretty good list, man. I don't know if you rank Cunningham anywhere in there, but I thought he did pretty good.
there's a lot of guys like McNabb for me. It was hard to keep off.
Yeah.
Cunningham hard to keep off. I know people are going to shred me for not having Reggie White. I just don't look. I was very little when Reggie White was playing for us. I just don't have memories.
Not a bad list. I agree with those two. I'm gonna tell you my top five. I'm gonna go with my top five Steeler players, and of course, this is my era of Steelers, so I wasn't around for the '70s Steelers. But I brought in at number five Rod Woodson. I thought that he had a presence in defense or a presence on the field that really brought the whole team together. I think he was a leader in play calling and understood what he was looking at, and I think that he dictated how the game was going to go for the other teams. They had to plan around Rod Woodson a lot. So he came in at my number five. At number four, I had Hines Ward. I don't know. It's just that it factor because the guy wasn't faster than everybody. He wasn't, like your new breed of receivers that can outrun you and they can go up high and take every ball that's 50-50 up there. But the guy knew how to get open. He knew how to run routes. And when he's not running a route, he knew what he needed to be doing on the field. Like he always had a job. That dude could block.
I was about to say one of the best to ever do the dirty work for sure.
Yeah, and that goes unnoticed a lot. We all look at the stats and the flashiness and all this and the numbers, but the reason why the team as a whole can put up numbers is because of all the work that he was doing when he didn't have the ball in his hands. So Hines Ward, number four. Number three, the flying Hawaiian, Troy Polamalu. I think the guy had a great sense for what was going on the field at all times. And he would sniff out plays, he would call his own audibles, he would just tear you apart out there when the quarterback is trying to figure out what is happening on a defense. He really kept them on their heels and had a really, really big impact on the outcomes of a lot of games in his career. So I think that he did great things that a lot of and he wasn't a huge guy, right? He wasn't like this really tall, typical, linebacker that you put out there. He was just very knowledgeable and very aware of what the game was bringing and always there for it. So number two, definitely James Harrison. I think that, not just because that Super Bowl, what was it, 100-yard interception or whatever return, Um,
It's against the Cardinals, right? Yeah.
yeah, he was just a menace out there. I mean, when I say James Harrison, I'm thinking of today's TJ Watt or JJ Watt or Nick Bosa or something like that. He was that presence that the offensive line always had to account for, because if they didn't, then they're going to have to worry about who's going to quarterback next play or the next drive. He was
So
a menace.
one of the most intimidating players ever.
Yep. And actually, he's the only jersey that I own right now of the Steelers. I got rid of my other ones, but now I sport my James Harrison every time. And then number one, Jerome Bettis. Um, I don't know. The dude wasn't the fastest out there, right? The bus could run you over, but that's not all he did. I don't know how he had such quick feet. I mean, for his size, that guy had great vision, great patience. You throw in the patience of a Le'Veon Bell. You throw the toughness of a Mike Allstott, and you put all this package together, and the dude was just effective in making sure that you had a run game, no matter who is on defense, right? No matter, they knew he was coming, they knew the bus was coming right on time, and they still couldn't stop it. And that is what opened up two Super Bowls for the Steelers when he was playing, because he understood what his job was, and he did it well no matter who was trying to stop him. So that's my number one on my top five. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. No, I mean, I remember Jerome Bettis. I mean, like he was almost like the best way I describe it for people who have never seen him or like don't really remember. Like just think if like Mike Allstott and Derrick Henry combined, and you would essentially get what Jerome Bettis did. I mean, there was no. And you want to talk about the last guy you want to face in the cold weather, or anyone in the secondary scene coming at you, like Jerome Bettis was about as automatic as you needed 3 yards or less. He was going to get it, but that wasn't all he could do. Like you said, he actually could move and could break away. And also something that people don't realize too for running backs, such an underrated skill is the ability to pass protect. And Jerome Bettis has to ever do it. And that's such an underrated skill. And people often wonder, why do rookies or some guys not get on the field as much as they think they should in the running back position? And a lot of that time is because they're not good enough in pass protection, where coaches can't trust them to put them on the field in certain scenarios. So, yeah, I love it. I mean, Jerome Bettis, I remember Jerome Bettis. The bus, yeah, no, I think it's a really solid list, and I mean, I even mentioned Palomalu in my list. So when I was talking about Dawkins, so
I'm ready
makes
for
sense.
all Pennsylvania Super Bowl. That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
that would be fun. Get the Steagles rivalry.
Well, man, that was a lot of good stuff. You got any final thoughts?
No, I think my last final thought is I'm going to hit one more Jason Kelce note. I think people don't realize the Eagles were really, really good at QB sneaks before Jalen Hurts, before the brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever you want to call it. They've been the best in the league ever since Jason Kelce got there, and that's not a coincidence. And he's one of the major reasons why that play is so successful, and also one of the major reasons why the Eagles have had one of the best offensive lines for years. He's the quarterback of that offensive line. He will be missed. He is an all-time legend. I just wanted to say thank you one more time, Jason. You owe us absolutely nothing. If you come back, I'll love you forever. If you don't come back, I'll still love you forever. So, do what's best for you. Hopefully, we got a better coach that might convince you to come back. But no, we'll see. But I want to make that point clear that a lot of the success of the tush push, or just the QB sneak in general, a lot of it is because of how good Jason Kelce is. Yes, it helps Jalen Hurts is an absolute freak, but it would be a lot less successful without Jason Kelce. And I'm not looking forward to seeing what that looks like without him. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Did
difficult.
you see Lincoln Riley was at the game?
I did see that.
So I think he showed up, and the Eagles forgot how to tackle. That's what he brings to the table.
Yeah, hopefully he's not their answer.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate. Thank you to our listeners from Jorge Noah and Team Fire Sirianni. We'll be talking to you next week and see what happens this week in the NFL playoffs. Thanks a lot. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, our YouTube channel, The Sport Fiction, and our website, thesportfiction.com. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And fire Sirianni. Do the right thing.
Talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.